Okay, let's try something new using the macro recorder and the macro editor. As an example, let's say I go to the macros menu and choose Start Macro Recorder. And I want to turn on the phantom power for input channel number 2. I want to do a phase invert, and I also want to mute it. And let's go to the macro recorder, and let's say Stop Macro Recorder. And here are all the commands. Input phase 2 equals 1, input invert 2 equals 1, and input mute 2 equals 1. And we can call this macro input 2 changes. And we go to the device, store to device memory, and we can store it at macro number 23. Let's click OK. And now it's stored. Okay, so now we have this macro that when we call it, it will do these things. I'm going to turn them off for now. And what if I also wanted to do something outside of the macro recorder, such as turn on the programmable output LED number 2? Notice there's no way to address the LED. However, we do have a command for it. It's a programmable output, so if we come here to rear panel control, we can see that under programmable outputs we have 16 virtual LEDs, and they're simply programmable outputs that we can assign to do a variety of things. Controlling LEDs is one of those things, and we can view the state here when we make changes. So let's make a change. Let's go to our command terminal, and let's type in PRGOUT for programmable out number 2 equals 1. Let's hit return. It says OK, it accepted the command. Let's look at rear panel control, and sure enough, the virtual LED number 2 is on. So we have control of it. Go back to command terminal, and if we press the up arrow on our keyboard, it will bring back the last command that we typed. Let's get rid of that 1, type 0, hit enter, and now it says OK, we've turned the LED off, and if we look, certainly the LED is off now. Okay, so now we want to incorporate that command into our existing macro number 23, which has the other commands with muting and phantom power and phase invert. So let's go to the macro editor, and we need to bring back the commands from macro number 23. So we go to device, recall from device memory. It shows the last macro that we programmed, input 2 changes. I click OK, and we get the commands back. Now what I can do is I can simply add a command. PRGOUT 2, let's go back, 2 equals 1. So now I've added programmable output 2 equals 1. So I've added the LED. So now this is where the commands and actually typing them in comes in handy. Although the macro recorder does many things for us, there are other things that are outside of those limits, and I'll show you more in another section. But we can simply recall the macro from memory into the editor, add whatever commands we want, type them in, and now what we do is we go to device, store to device memory, choose the same location, we click OK. Okay, we hit done. And let's take a look now. If we go back to inputs, we'll see that we've taken off phantom invert and mute. Let's run the macro. Run macro number 23. We click OK. And we see phantom invert and mute are selected. Now let's go look at that programmable output under rear panel control, programmable outputs, and the LED is lit as well. So it gives us a tremendous amount of flexibility. Now here's what's going on when we connect with the Aspen control panel. There is a lot of communication that's taking place, because what's happening is via USB, which is our current connection mode, it's constantly looking to see if there's any activity. So if we were talking into a microphone we would get real-time leveling. We'd get all of our mutes and input gains and cross-point gains and filtering. All of that is going to be continually updated in our interface. Well, what if we're remote? We're at Starbucks or some other type of remote location, and we want to get into the facility remotely, but we don't have a great web connection. We can always connect via the network, and we can type in, well, right now we're currently connected via USB, but we can always get in via the network. Let me disconnect. I click OK, and if I were to go to connect network, we can type in at this point the IP address of the host and its port. The default port for Aspen is 4080. However, if it's a slow connection, it's going to be very hard to keep up all of the monitoring that needs to take place for the main control panel. So what we have available to us is we have another utility. If we go to All Programs and we go to Lectrosonics Aspen, and we don't go to the control panel, but we go to Tools and we go to Aspen Command Terminal. Now this command terminal is a very nice utility because there's no overhead. I'm going to connect right now via USB. You could connect remotely, click OK. And now what we have is a direct connection to the device, and it shows the device here. We could have multiple devices we're connected to, but it's not checking for all of the inputs and also the cross points and filtering and metering and those types of things. It's a very simple, clean connection that allows us to then communicate with the device directly. So this is a great way to get in remotely. And once again, you can get in and type your commands. And notice I have all caps on, so it generated an error. And there we're talking to the 1624. So this is a great utility. So what we want to do next in the next section is learn how to organize all of our macros within a text file such as Notepad, and then remotely upload them via Command Terminal. Okay, so let's go to the next section.